viewers, thanks so much for tuning back in to another episode of A Case of Distrust. Without further ado, let's get started, see if we can crack this case. So in order to find Green's killer, I had to prove that someone had the means, the motive, and the opportunity for murder. Anyone connected to the case was a possible suspect. So we already talked to Mrs. Green. We didn't really find out too much new information. So let's move along. Maybe let's talk to the Tin Spoon Lounge. Talk to Tiny Paul. See if he has any information. So Green had been killed outside the Tin Spoon. I could go there to look for clues of his murder. I think a good thing to do here is to try and see if we can verify if Mrs. Green really was there until I think she said 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So I wrapped my knuckles on the same metal door. Instead of the usual dark eyes, the door swung open to reveal Fred Grant. He let out a PC good seeing ya with more whiskey on his breath than a fire breather. Okay. So he was here drinking. He stumbled down the next few steps and I caught his limp body. All loose ends tied up, he said, winking at me while he tried to stand tall. Through the doorman in the back of the wagon, he continued, he says nobody came in or out from the upstairs billiards hall last night. A hiccup interrupted Grant's thoughts. You know, I believe him, but the Bulls need someone to work on, and putting welts on this goon will make the afternoon go faster. Oh, that sounds awful. Why are you doing that? He again tried to stand upright. Failing at that, he stumbled to his police car, got behind the wheel, and let the sirens loose and drove the machine around the corner. Okay. This crazy nut. I continued up the stairs to find a similar scene as the day before, only Tiny Paul had been replaced by a young woman, idly playing with a deck of cards scattered across the billiards table. Alright, lady. I could see the tears welled in the girl's eyes. Interesting. The balls were gone from the billiard table. In their place were some betting chips and cards strewn across the felt. I counted 5 aces, 2 aces of hearts. Let's see, is there anything new over here before we talk to her? Doesn't look it. I approached the young woman and looked her up and down. I started close. Let's study her face. I studied her face. She was in her early 20s and was naturally pretty, with deep eyes, shimmering black hair, and big rough lips. Rogue lips. Though holding back tears somewhat twisted her face. Who are you? I cleared my throat. Who are you? Who are you, I asked. She said in a clear, strong voice, I'm Ella Smith. I work nights at the back as a backing singer. She added in a more delicate tone, but, well, last night I had a bit too much of the cider. The whole band was here, playing a long game of poker and singing after work. I wondered if she had been in the billiards room since the previous evening. Perhaps she didn't want to talk about her night. It might embarrass a young woman. But I had to know this. We have to know the story. What's going on? But I had to know the story. And you're still here, I asked. I came to this morning. A blush interrupted her before she continued her thought. I was lying on the pool table when I heard the cop banging on the metal door. I asked how much she had to drink. About Grant. We don't care how much she had to drink. We want to know about Grant. I asked her about Grant, changing the subject from her drinking. I think she appreciated that, yeah. He was curious about the shooting outside last night, you know, a man died, but I didn't hear a peep. I don't think we could have heard anything through all the racket. I realized she was related to the Greens case at least partially. I had to bump her for information. Why on earth would you be crying then? Yeah, why are you holding back tears? I said I noticed she had been crying and asked her why. Her lower lip wavered, but she managed to stop it before any tears could get through. It's that copper who was just here. He kept wanting me to feed him drinks, and the more I put in him, the more fresh he got with me. She heaved a sigh. You should have smacked him. It's not your fault. It's not your fault, I said. Of course it isn't, she exclaimed. All men are brutes, but I can't exactly slip away from a copper. That is true. Anyhow, I'm just frantic because of the booze. I'm sure it'll wear off. She turned her gaze back to the cards on the table. She was putting up a strong mask, but I could tell something about Grant's interaction had rattled her. The truth is, most women wear a mask in public. Almost every one of us has a story about being mistreated or worse. Anyhow, mistreated or worse. Me too. What else do you want to know? Let's ask her about this. Green was killed around midnight. I told her, do you remember anything from then? She turned red. In an instant, midnight was the time I sang all by myself to the crowd up here. How do you know it was midnight? I asked. Well, last New Year's Eve at exactly midnight, me and Lil Fanny, our lead, did a swell duet for the boys. They wanted to hear it again, but she wasn't around to sing it. So I did it alone. Lil Fanny wasn't around, I asked, but the doorman says nobody from the billiards room left the joint. Ella shrugged. Maybe she was in the toilets. I didn't go looking for her. Look, I never get to sing lead. They don't like us Chinese girls doing that, so I took my chance. Okay. How could I turn it down, she asked. Well, anyhow, after that song is when I really downed some gin. I didn't much like it, but they said it was good for me, and I was riding high with everyone watching. I don't remember much after that. I thanked her for the tip. So you claim you were in here at midnight, I asked. That's right, she said. No, I'm not contradicting. I nodded and asked her about something else. Let's ask this again. As I told you, she said I was up here the entire night. I think, the information that Fanny wasn't in the pool hall at midnight is important, obviously. I think we can take that. Let's leave here. We'll leave her alone for now. Let's go to the barber shop. Before we go and talk to Mrs. Green about where she was. Let's see, is there anything new in here? It doesn't look it. There was a man sitting in the barber chair, tapping his foot and staring at me. I didn't see Stable anywhere. Alright, who are you? He stared at me with a grin. He looks so funny. That extended to his eyes. He was wearing a barber's cape, which told me he was here for a haircut. I wonder why Stable had left this man mid-trip. I asked how he was doing. Swell, he answered. Yes, very swell indeed. Thank you, miss. His words came out as jovial as his expression, and they held a slight and affable southern tint. A few more pleasantries returned equally verbose responses with no meat to them. They piqued my interest. A stranger in Stable's barber chair with no sign of Stable around. Who are you? I asked with genuine curiosity. I am merely a mortal man enjoying my life at this very moment, he replied, looking me up and down, and there's so much to enjoy. I laughed in response. The old guy was getting fresh with me. He smiled, widened at my laugh. Glad that some flappers know how to take a compliment, he said. Most modern girls get their stockings knotted whenever someone calls them pretty. We're gonna agree. Just to get him talking. I agreed. Some girls take themselves a bit too seriously. He laughed at that. Yes, I suppose that is true. Surely it is. Well, my name is Ray Carter, regular jazz bassist at the Tin Spoon Lounge. Ooh. A speakeasy in North Beach. It is my pleasure to meet you. A speakeasy. Oh, jeez Louise. He worked at the Tin Spoon. That surprised me. Were you there last night, I asked. Until early this morning, he gleamed. I won a bucket of change at the poker table. Just about everyone was saying they never saw anyone play cards so well. Sometimes you get lucky, I suppose, he winked. I wondered if he was at all related to his case. I was glad he was smiling. An upbeat suspect eased any harsh questions. He saw me taking notes and asked, "Are you some sort of continental operative?" When I nodded, he let out a whistle and said, "A woman detective? Well, that is almost as swell as the sight as a black man in a white man's barber chair." Alrighty. Let's ask him where he was at midnight. No, actually, Redstone, he only gives haircuts to friends. "I'm sorry, miss," he said. "I know nothing about that." Alright. Well, I wanted to know if you were a friend. Green died around midnight. I was inside all night with the band and Tiny Paul playing poker. We heard shots in the racket. We heard no shots in the racket. Okay. Let's ask about Fanny. Ellie Smith tells me little Fanny wasn't in the billiards room at midnight. I remember being there at the beginning and at the end of the night, but I cannot keep track of everyone every time. If Ellie seems sure, I have no reason to doubt her. Okay. Green kicked the can near midnight. I asked again, right? He nodded. You told me that already. We were all in the billiards room at that time. Okay. I don't think this is gonna... I showed him something in my book, yeah. This doesn't mean anything. How much did you win last night? I asked him. Oh, a heap of it, he grinned. And how many aces did it take you to get there? His face showed genuine surprise. Now you look here, he growled. Tiny Paul is a mean-spirited, no-good, black-hating son of a bitch. He pays us pennies, but wants us to be good and smile for him. Well, I am not having that, miss. No, I am not having that at all. Yes, I took him for a ride, and I feel no remorse for it. In some ways, it is all part of the game. I said that was alright, but Tiny Paul might see it differently. Oh, now you would not tell him, would you? I see no reason to. I don't see a reason I need to, I said, so long as you tell me what I need to know. He smiled. Well, certainly, most certainly. What is it that you want? I was glad he knew the score. I want to know where Stable is, I said. Stable was here. He received a telephone call and said he had to check on something at his Tanforan racetrack. He told me to just sit tight until he returned, and here we are. So Stable had gone to his horses. Another lead that would need chasing. Alright. He continued, I bet I had no reason to cheat last night, not with the way Ellie kept distracting him. Yes, he was very distracted indeed. I raised a questioning brow. Ella Smith and Tiny Paw have something going on. That girl throws herself onto him like she'd thrown water on a fire. Okay. Interesting. Let's leave him be. Alright, so we're going to leave him alone for now. I think we have a lot to work with. We know Mrs. Green wasn't there at midnight. Looks like Ellie is throwing herself at Tiny Paw. We can ask about that. So I think those are both good things to do for next episode. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. We'll continue on this wild goose chase next episode, and until then, talk to you soon.